Hello everybody, this is Joe. We'll be here about 15 minutes. We're going to talk about America in 1720. What we're going to do is we're going to start off this broadcast of history about talking early America and what's going on here. And if you take a look at the map here, you'll notice on the 13 colonies, where it says Western right here, well, on the 13 colonies, you'll notice how America's map is drawn in 1700. Look at Florida. Look at Texas. Look at parts unknown here. See what's going on back here. Look at New France. Hudson Lake, Under Lake. You got Canada up here. You see the Canadian border here. Now what we're talking about here at this time, we're going to talk about how America was at that time and the expansion of the British. The British are expanding at this time, and they want to bring up more into the colonies. Now, even though they never got past the 13 colonies, but they did go into Virginia. Remember, Virginia, if you watch this really, really great program that they had on the History Channel, how state got their name. So remember, at the time, maybe a little later, Tennessee was part of Virginia, went all the way out. Tennessee was part of Virginia until they cut this, till they redrafted the state lines and created the state of Tennessee. And as you know, Congress does that. So if you look up, you see Maine. You see what says Newfoundland up there? So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in here. Okay. So we're going to zoom in the map here. And if you look here, you can see there's like cities you haven't heard of. Okay, see they have Cuba here. See, in 1720 they do have Cuba here, but look how Florida is drawn off. Here's the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, now it's Gulf of America. Okay, but this would be Texas here. Okay, see, you have New Mexico, Mexico here. So if you look at this map here, you're kind of like, wow, look at how America was back then, because we didn't know what it was. So back in this time period, the British, the Crown, is expanding westward. Okay, westward. Now they know they're at the Mississippi River. Okay, we know about this areas here, but not too far past the Mississippi. But you also notice along the seaboard here, the cities here along the seaboard. So we can increase this a little bit bigger. Okay. So So when we look at this, when we look at the map here, we can see that the ports developed here. This is all British since the 16th century. Now at the time, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Patrick Henry, Governor Morris, and many other signers of the Declaration of Independence, or those who were at the Declaration of Independence, they were either young men at the time or had been born. Okay, but most of them had been born at this time, because this is 1720, and the Declaration of Independence was signed 40 years later. But some of them weren't born yet. A lot of them were farmers and stuff. Now let's look at the seaboard here. See, we have the ports set up. Now this time here, we definitely have slavery going on right now at this time. The British East Indies and the British and all these cities and countries and major areas, they're all involved with the slave trade, and also involved with trading back and forth with molasses, tobacco, and cotton and stuff like this, and textiles. Now here's another thing to understand. At this time, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, the country is expanding out. Remember, under President Monroe of Manifest Destiny, which would come in the 1820s later, this is the first of the expansion. But you got to realize this is Elsie. During this period of time, you'll also notice that America is expanding, but it's expanding with different countries at this time. You got to realize we have the French here, okay, and at this time here, the Napoleonic Wars haven't started. This isn't 1800, so there's pre-Napoleonic Wars, but we have French here in the south, which would be Louisiana. We have the British in the north. We also have the British up in Canada, and they're also fighting with the Indians, okay? And then we have, like I just said, we have France, and then down in Florida, in that area here, what would be Florida, it's run by the Spaniards. Remember, during the time of Andrew Jackson went to war with the Spaniards and wanted to go into Florida to fight with them during the war in 1812. But he was, I'm understanding, he was somewhat allowed, but not completely allowed. So we have all these different peoples and all these different countries claiming America. Then we have up in the Colorado territory, which hasn't been around. Then we got like Minnesota, all this stuff up here, and then we have German settlements up north, and we also have in the country up here. We also have the anti-slave movement beginning here in the 1700s, late 1600s. Now I have a book here because what I told you guys in my notes that I always have something prepared. So I have this book about the slave testimony here. Now this book was written many years ago. I'm not sure of the exact date, and I'm not sure about the authenticity of it. But this book right here I use as a source to study slavery. And if you go back here, it'll talk about the earliest days when the slaves were I'm sorry, the earliest, I'm thinking about two things at once. The early slave trade, where they want to stop the slave trade. And if you look at this book here, the Documents of American History, it talks about the first actual if you look at this book here, called Documents of American History, this book right here will tell you, in Documents of History, will tell you when this stuff was happening in the first slave movement. Now, I had this book as a gift to me here for my birthday a couple years ago, which is a really great book here. I'm reading it occasionally, but this book is really more in depth, so I like this book to read occasionally, but I really study this one here. So, so during this time, like I was saying, we have France, we have Germany, we have Spain in America, okay? And there's conflicts with the Indians. Now, also at this time here, the British brought over the smallpox epidemic. So America right now is still wasteland. It's still not much use. But there was some big cities at the time, obviously built up, like New York, Philadelphia, all that stuff. But the most important thing here is to look at, when we look at 1720, what is the beginning of the starting in 1720? Now, I told you I was going to go back in the 16th and 15th centuries. I can do that, but I'm not really comfortable doing that in this setting because it's just a bunch of things to talk about. But so let's start at 1720. So 1720, what was the main things going on here? What was the most important thing going on here? Well, number one, the first thing is all the people that you know that are founding fathers, they were young men. Now we have William Penn and those guys from the 16th century, but the people that we know of now, George Washington, all those guys we just talked about a few minutes ago, they're the young men or just been born, okay? And it's going to take 40 years to get the Declaration of Independence. So from 1720 to 1776, we have what here? We have what? The development and the embers of Declaration of Independence. And here's two things when we talk about this in 1720. We'll continue 1720 for a couple of more broadcasts. But the main thing in 1720 was going on before that was slavery in the country, on American soil, how Americans were taught, properly or not, and the keen attitude towards the American citizens, which you want to say is they're British subject at the time, but the king towards the Americans and the colonies, and they were treated as subjects of the crown, which they were at the time, but they weren't properly treated, and they were taxed. In the 1700s, we had the Molasses Act, we had all these different acts. You have navigational acts from the 1600s, which means you're paying money to do this. Here's all the things here's all the stuff we're looking at. But the most important thing about it is, we're going to look at the expansion of America in 1720 and see what happened between 1720 and 23 in the next broadcast. We'll be here the next couple of days. I appreciate you talking to me, and thank you for indulging me. Follow me if you can. Appreciate you, Matt. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I will speak to you guys